Well, hello, everybody. I wanted to do a little talk about consciousness. And Gurdjieff reminds us that we can only, well, his quote is, I can direct only if there is someone present who is able to direct. So we're trying to gather together all our different personalities that are within ourselves, get the deputy steward to come out to gather them all together and say, okay, it's time for the real I to come through and direct. Because most of the time we're just following whatever I is in control at that time of you, or we're being directed by other people, whether it's our peers, people we're hanging out with, or whatever's going on. Very rarely actually in control of what it is we are actually doing. So I was doing some in search of the miraculous. That's what brought this idea of this story, this film up. And Spensky says, in the religion of all nations, there are indications of the possibility of a state of consciousness, which is called enlightenment, but which cannot be described in words. And that's what we're trying to attain here, enlightenment. We're trying to reach that Buddhic state or that Christ state or whatever it is that you're into, that's going to be the higher version of ourselves. We don't want to be the lower version. We're aiming high. And so with the enlightenment version of ourselves, it has to be a controlled version of ourselves, the I that's in control, not commanding. There's a difference between commanding and being in control. Normally, all our other eyes are trying to command what we're doing and control what we're doing. So we're trying to head upwards to enlightenment. And he continues. And as he says, enlightenment is beyond words, like the divine source is beyond words. We just cannot explain or describe them. So Spensky continues with, but the only right way to objective consciousness is through the development of self-consciousness. In the state of self-consciousness, a man can have flashes of objective consciousness and remember them. And again, this is something we're trying to be. We're trying to be objective. We're trying to be impartial. We're also trying to be awake enough to remember what we're doing and be aware what we are doing. And this is all part of the path towards enlightenment. And an enlightened being is aware, is conscious, and is also conscious. So an enlightened being has the conscience to understand, to be everything that's going on, sees the whole picture, where most of the time in our lives, we just see little pictures of what's happening. We don't look at the full story of anything, which is why everything gets so mixed up and things go wrong or things are misunderstood, usually because we've not got the wherewithal to be able to see everything. But when you're an enlightened being, you see the whole picture of how things would happen. A makes B happen, which makes C happen, which makes D happen, and on and on and on and on, where most of us just look at A to B. So having this way of being able to understand the world, everything that happens in it, with this awakening in us, this enlightened way of being, is that essence of the I coming through, the one I that is the real version of yourself and myself that we have. And Spensky goes on, consciousness is a property which is continually changing. Now it is present, now it is not present. And there are different degrees and different levels of consciousness. We have only the possibility of consciousness and rare flashes of it. And it does come rarely unless we've worked upon ourselves so that we are aware of it. And obviously our consciousness does go up and down, and our levels of understanding and working on ourselves go up and down. We're trying to keep it at a higher level, obviously. And once we've developed ourselves enough, that higher level helps us to attain to the divine and be the divine being that we should be. And seeing flashes of it gives us hope. And when usually those are really well remembered, they're things that you never forget when you have that flash of awakefulness. It's something that stays with you because you're trying to get back to that way of being. You're trying to attain it again, where the only way we can do that is by working upon ourselves. Because sometimes these awakening moments, these flashes happen when something peculiar is happening to you, or as Gurdjieff says, a shock happens to you and something, bing, what's going on, kind of thing. But Ouspensky also says in Search of the Miraculous You can know consciousness only in yourself. You can know it only when you have it. When you have not got it, you can know that you have not got it, not at that very moment, but afterwards. And we all have moments like that when something's happened, and afterwards you think, how did that happen? Or how did it end up being like that? Normally, because we're not awake and we've just let things happen to us and we're just working mechanically and not being conscious enough to be aware of what's going on. Moments of consciousness are very short and are separated by long intervals of completely unconscious mechanical working of the machine. You will then see that you can think, feel, act, speak, work without being conscious of it. Oh God, I do that loads. I think I'm doing the work, but I'm not awake and I'm not conscious of what I'm doing. I'm just doing it as a mechanical action. But when I put effort into it and when I'm really being conscious of what it is I'm doing, totally different. The vibrations are completely different, much higher. You're working on yourself and you can feel the difference within yourself or oneself or within me when I'm doing it. It's all being conscious, being awake. And, you know, I can only pray that I can try and keep at that kind of working at it, at that kind of level when I am doing the work. You know, I like to think that I'm awake when I'm making these shows, but it's very difficult because I'm self-conscious and I'm trying to put across Gurdjieff's work, and I'm self-conscious of what people are thinking, which I shouldn't be. I should just be doing it, which I don't let what other people think affect me. Sometimes it does, and then I have to really work on myself even more. But it's something that we are doing in every day of our lives, and everything that we're doing, we need to be awake as to what we are doing, whether it's making a cup of tea, talking to somebody else, making a video, you know, even watching TV. How's your body? How are you? Are you stiff in places? Are you relaxed? You know, are you holding tension? Things like that. This is all constant work. And as Gurdjieff says in Views from the Real World, knowing the machine, I give orders every moment for associations to change, but I have to do this at every moment, and it's very difficult. We are not giving orders every moment, are we? We are not in control of what we're doing when we are asleep. We are not in control of what our body's doing, what our brain's thinking, just letting thoughts come through, then our body do what it wants to, then our emotions affect us. But when we can be more awake and aware, we can start controlling all that and putting the commands to ourselves, commands that will help us develop ourselves. And Gurdjieff says in Views from the Real World, so these are from pages 79 and 80, which I've read this quite often in shows, but I'm going to do it again. There are several states of consciousness. One, sleep, in which our machine still functions, but at a very low pressure. Two, waking state, as we are at this moment. Three, self-consciousness. It is the moment when a man is aware both of himself and his machine. We have in flashes, but only in flashes. There are moments when you become aware not only of what you are doing, but also of yourself doing it. You see both I and the here of I am. Oh, let me read that again. You see both I and the here of I am here. Very good exercise. Both the anger and the I that is angry. Call this self-remembering if you like. Now, when you are fully and always aware of the I and what it is doing and which I it is, you become conscious of yourself. That's something I found fascinating when I got into this work, of seeing, becoming aware of which I was manipulating me at that certain time. You know, angry Debbie. I don't know, being silly Debbie, pissed off Debbie, or, you know, these different versions of I. Working at work in my day job, Debbie, I, and meeting new people. You're a totally different person because you're trying to put on a persona that, you know, you want these people to like you. Then different, fascinating, looking at yourself. Cringe at sometimes, a lot of cringing, a lot of laughing at myself, which is important. We must laugh at ourselves. And just be aware that these eyes are just different eyes trying to get us through our everyday life. And we're trying to gather them together. I've got to get that deputy steward I to come along and collect them all together so that we can be concentrated enough to let the real I come through. I'm just going to finish off that quote. Self-consciousness is the third state. There are states beyond the third state of consciousness. Only a man in the highest state of being is a complete man. All the others are merely fractions of man. And as many of you know, Gurdjieff talks about the different men, 1, 2, 3, man 4, man 5, man 6, man 7. You know, and I'd like to think that maybe us people on this path of doing this work, we're man 4, but we need to attain higher to become man 5, man 6, and man 7. It's a long process, but it can be done if we work on ourselves. And of course, woman as well. I use the word man because it's just, you know, easier. When I'm reading from Gurdjieff's writings, of course, that's what he's using, but we mean man and woman. I forget to change the words to human or men and women. It's kind of like I did a talk on gods and goddesses once, but forgot to say goddess. I just used gods as a word that covers them all. And at the end, I could see this woman frustrated at the front all the time. She was just like, and her hand went up first at the Q&A, and her question was, why are you not meaning the goddess as well? And I should have reiterated at the beginning, when I'm saying the word gods, I mean gods and goddesses. When I'm saying the word man, I'm meaning men and women. So thank you all for watching. Hopefully you're keeping yourself aware and awake, and your conscious is leading you onwards, upwards, and higher. Blessings.